Hello, my name is Monica Perez, and I am an executive editor at Charlesbridge, an independent publishing house in Watertown, Massachusetts. And we are very excited to chat today with Dorit Linke, who is the author of our YA book coming out this fall. It's titled Beyond the Blue Border. It is a translated book from the German. And Dorit, could you tell us what the German title is?
Oh, the German title is Jenseits der blauen Grenze.
Great. That's great. That's for the people who will understand that.
Okay.
I would just love to hear a little bit about you, Dorit, and sort of, how your childhood and growing up influenced the writing of Beyond the Blue Border.
Yeah. So my name is Dorit Linke. I'm a writer of children and youth books. And I wrote Beyond the Blue Border because I wanted to keep the memories of my childhood and my youth. So most of the action takes place in Rostock. This is a place in East Germany. It's my hometown. And of course, I describe places and street names and situations of the life I experienced there in the book. Some stories from my childhood as well, from school, sports, and friendships I have personally experienced at that time. And after the fall of the wall and in face of all the changes, I just wanted to capture the experiences I've made and the memories of that time, because I knew it was gone. So and then I decided to write a book, but as well, on the other hand, I wanted to not write a book with the tone of a fairy tale, like Once Upon a Time in the GDR. I wanted to describe the difficulties people have who were exposed to that system, and I wanted to show how brutal the system sometimes was, and as well what happened to people who resisted or did not adapt. So and with the book as well, I wanted just to show how inhuman the border was that divided Germany, and how impossible for people sometimes even the thought of being free was.
For me, what attracted me to the story was the fact that I lived through this time in the 80s. And so I remember it from sort of my point of view in the US, seeing all of this happen. And I know that teens won't have that memory, and they won't have that context, and they won't have grown up during the Cold War, so it won't quite feel it's not the same when they hear about it in textbooks as reading a story like this, which makes you feel it so deeply and personally. And that's what I was attracted to. How did you feel during that time period, the fall of the Berlin Wall?
During that time, I mean, of course, I was very excited when the wall came down, obviously. But I was part of the civil movement. I went to the streets and took part in the protests, and with a candle in my hand, maybe the pictures. And at that special day, there was a demonstration in my hometown in Rostock, and someone was running around and saying, "Oh, the wall came down, and we just couldn't believe it." It was very, of course. We said, no, he's crazy. It's not true. It can't be true. But then I went home, and then I saw all the pictures in the TV, the pictures, people on the wall jumping around and celebrating. And it has to sink in. Because I couldn't read. I was shocked in a positive way. And of course that was, it was really exciting to be part of history, and to realize that in the moment as well, that this is history, and probably it won't get any better than that to be part of a positive revolution.
I have to say we were very excited even here on our side of the pond. I remember that, and I remember watching all the images on CNN as well. So
it was a very emotional event, of course, and it affected the West as well. It's not just a story about the East; it's about people, families who were separated, and a lot of people have been involved. So it was really nice to see the whole world is celebrating as well for us. It was beautiful.
How did the characters come to you for this particular story, Hannah and Andreas? How did that happen? I know you've got the context and you've got the history. So how did the characters happen?
It took me a while to write the book. It was really a couple of years, and at first Hannah appeared, and for obvious reasons, because she isn't me, but she is a girl, is doing a lot of sports, and I did that as well. And she in the book I describe situations I experienced as well at school. So she was there. Of course, she's different, but it started with her, and then the others, came by and by. They were there as well. They are not real persons. I invented them with the time. They got the character. They got the way to behave, and and I thought it would be a good idea to have 3 characters, because it's quite a special dynamic then. And one is leaving the country then, as we know, and of course that put a lot of pressure to the other both. And,
right, and a trio is a little bit of an unstable also dynamic as well. So you've got some tension there as well. So. But I liked that, and have as this is clearly historical fiction, is that a genre that you typically read? Did you see yourself writing in that genre?
I think it's really a good genre just to get younger people to deal with history, because you write about historic events and about behavior of people in certain situation and circumstances, and if you're telling a story, then they could much better imagine how the time might have been, or ask themselves questions like, what would I have done in that special situation? So I think it is a very important genre, and as sometimes myself read historical fiction as well, but for me, I think it has got something to do with history. I'm still affected by, for instance, the GDR or the Third Reich. Not so far away. It's interesting as well, but for me, if I can relate what I read to maybe things I have experienced as well, or my grandmother or grandfather, I think that's interesting, and that's quite still important. And I mean, novels like When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, for instance, Judith Kerr, or Never Fall Down, Patricia McCormick. I think that's a very powerful novel about a really gruesome history, Cambodia. Yeah. But I think it's a youth book as well, and it shows quite well how it is possible to tell even that kind of history in a way young people can understand. Yeah.
So I feel like this is an important genre that we need to be in, and especially now I feel, because there's so many parallels in this story about 2 young people looking for a better life, a better way to live, and fleeing, a repressive regime. And that's happening all over the world right now. So, that kind of always happens, but it's very much sort of in the news, and it's important. And this sort of really humanizes people, in a way that, you hear of refugees, and yet you don't really kind of understand what they might have gone through before they get to that point where they've decided to risk a lot to leave their countries. So that's sort of why I feel like the historical fiction is always applicable, but this story particularly now. Right. And do you, I feel like there are other sort of difficult coming of age topics in the book as well. one of the things about YA is we do generally see some hope in the story, as well as, I think with adult books sometimes you can have a very dark story, and yes, it's realistic, and yet
Yeah.
we understand that happens, and I think adults get that, and in YA for young adults, I think we do try to have a little bit more of a thread of hope in there as well, for young readers. And so I do like that there is that hope that the teens have, that there is something better out there for them. And yet I don't want to give away the ending in this talk, but so I kind of just want maybe to talk about how you approached that idea of reality versus sort of what we hope can be possible for the future.
Yeah. I think I did both. You can imagine one end and you can imagine the other end, and this is something, when I was reading in schools, the children or young people told me that they either did that or that, and some were really convinced, no, and the others, yeah, why not, and I think that it is important, because it's in the novel, in the story as well, that Hannah is imagining something as well. So it's quite logical to do it this way, and for me it was, and of course, I agree there should be a bit hope, or maybe if you see hope as imagination of a story should be ending. Yeah, there shouldn't be people in the water and drowning at all. Yeah, and so if you have that understanding of hope, I totally agree. But on the other hand, we have reality, and we have to deal with that as well. And the reality was quite brutal as well, of course, in East Germany, because between the war 1961, when the wall was built, and 1989, there about 5,000 or 6,000 people tried to escape over the Baltic Sea, across the Baltic Sea, and not even 1,000 have been successful. So the others either died or went missing or were put in jail. So that's the reality. And for me, that's why it was impossible to tell only the hopeful story. Yeah, that's why I have that open ending.
Yeah.
And I choose that because then, as I said before, people could choose or could decide for themselves. And the good thing is then, because of that ending, they start to do some kind of research themselves, the readers, and just because they would like to have an answer, what could have happened, and I think that's a good thing if you get readers to do that, and not case closed and everything is fine or everything is really 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 bad. They inform themselves what could have happened. Yeah, so.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. That's a good point, because those questions and that questioning leads to more, just more reading and more information. I think that there's a lot. I have to say that we have a lot of information in the book too to help you understand the time period. We have a really extensive glossary of terms, and it kind of explains some of the organizations and some of the terms that you hear over and over again in the book. So I think that that's also helpful, but it's just a tiny bit of what you could research and read about and learn about. So I find that I wish that sometimes that the glossary would come in the front so that you could be prepared. But I think that in the course of the book, things are pretty clear in context about what it could be and you hear it and you understand it from the context through the book, and then you get a little bit of more information at the back of the book. So I really like that, and I think that that's not always, you don't always get that with a historical fiction novel, but
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I like
Okay,
that a
good.
lot.
Yeah.
And I have to say we tried to really keep most of the terms, in the book, translate them as best as we can. I can really only think of a couple of things that we sort of tried to maybe gloss over a little bit, maybe because it was a lot. It was a lot of new terminology. It was a lot of new vocabulary,
Can
and
imagine. Yeah.
right. And so, but in general, I think we wanted to assume that our readers were up to the task of immersing themselves in the world and understanding, what it was like. And of course, you're in another time, you're in another country, and there's going to be a lot you don't understand. So I think that some readers will probably read the book for the story and the characters and to find out what happened. And yet, others might sort of take a little bit more time to try to figure out what's going on. And I think
Yeah.
both approaches are valid. And I think our readers are sort of like absorbing information as they go along too, and they don't even realize it, that they're learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, I think that that's a good approach. But I think with titles in translation, in the US anyway, there used to be more of an inclination to Americanize everything and to leave out a lot, sort of what made the book different. And that's something we're definitely trying to move away from. And the fact that everyone is so connected online, our young readers are more than ever. And it's sort of like a worldwide community now, then it's easier to sort of leave that information in there and leave difficult terms. For example, and it's not even difficult. I think we left the German term for street all the way throughout the novel, like Strasse, right?
Oh, okay.
You can say it, but that was, yeah, exactly. That was something that we thought, it adds that flavor, it adds that otherness that isn't a bad thing, So I think that that's something that we're looking for in the books that we have in translation or books that we have imported from other countries. So that was sort of my approach with, looking at the translation, editing it, clarifying anything. From your point of view, how do you feel like that was an effective way to work? And do you have any feelings about sort of the English version of your book?
No, I think it's great. I mean, in general, I'm really, really grateful that it's in the world now in English, because, a lot more people are able to read the book now. Yeah, the whole world, if they're able to speak, and that's just a great thing. I have been living in the UK sometimes and have friends over there, and now they can read my book. Yeah, they know it exists, but they haven't been able to read it. That's great. And the translation, I think it was a very, very kind and nice way of working together. I received a couple of questions once with some comments and and questions how I feel about this or that, and I think everything was fine. And I haven't had so many books translated into another language. It's a Russian version out as well, but I couldn't really check if it's okay. But I know it is. But and that's the same with the English. Of course, I'm able to speak English, but translation is a different thing, and I have all the trust that everything is going to be fine. So yeah, I'm very pleased with everything.
Well, that's wonderful.
Thank you again that you're doing the book. That's great.
Well, our translator Elizabeth Loffer was wonderful to work with, I have to say, as well, and really poured her heart into it and is super excited about this as well. And she really fell in love with the story from the very beginning. So I think that helps. I think that, when you have somebody, your translator, who is just as excited as you are, that's wonderful. for me, the way the book started out with, it's not a linear narrative. The book does jump around in time, and I thought that just jumping right in with that action scene where they are finally like just taking off into the water, and it's they're trying to evade patrols, was really wonderful. Did the story always start at that point?
No, I've changed it a couple of times when I was writing it. But quite soon it was quite clear that I would start with that kind of action, because I like that as well. And if you write for young people, you have to get them very soon. They have to be in the story very, very soon. They are not, sometimes maybe not as patient as grown-ups are. I don't know. But I like that as well, to have a reaction of something I just don't know at that moment, and that of course build tension and drama, and I like that as well still. And I have the swimming parts in the book, and then of course the main question, why they are doing this, and the past. The reflections into the past explain why they are doing this, and then there's the other main question: will they make it? So that's the structure of the book, and I know that those swimming parts, they are quite exhausting for readers as well. And I knew that I would have to interrupt them with passages, from the past, so that the readers can take a breath. And they told me afterwards that was good, because they have been exhausted. And of course, the parts in the past, they are not harmless at all. They are also very dramatic, but it's a different kind of storytelling, and the reader can relax a little bit then.
Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It gets very intense again towards the end when we come away from the backstory and the history, and we're just in the moment again. And so I think that makes a lot of sense for the structure of this book. And I also think that, sort of that's the way a lot of the best stories are written. Like, I think of it like an onion, and you're peeling back the layers. And so, I think that's sort of what happens with the way that this book is written, is that you're constantly peeling back another layer and finding out more about why our two characters are in this situation in the first place.
And I think it's good if not every question is immediately answered, so that there is the question, what is going to happen, and then you have to, then you remember, okay, at the very beginning it was brought up already, and I didn't know the answer. Now I have the answer.
Right, and one, I have to say, this is just sort of a little bit view into the process of how. An American editor reads a book that is in another language, is that a foreign publisher or agent will send us a very small sample in English, sort of to pique our interest. And the fact that this book starts so intensely and urgently and with lots of action and excitement, I think that's exactly what caught my eye and my attention. So it wasn't just the teens; it was definitely across the board. And so
thanks to the agent.
so that worked really well, right? It's a bit of a different story when a book has a slow build, and that's completely another valid way of writing. But it might not catch someone's eye that way. So it's just kind of an interesting tidbit, I have to say. And it's been a process too for us with this book. I'm excited that it's releasing. It was a little bit delayed, as many things were delayed with COVID, and I think that it's better now, just because I think we're going to have more of an audience. It was very difficult, publishing anything during the pandemic, and so this is exciting that we're finally going to be able to put this out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
this
very
fall.
excited too.
So, I'm really happy that you were able to come and talk with us. Is there anything that you would sort of like readers to know? What has been sort of the reaction of German readers so far?
Yeah, it is good, and the children and they really like the book, and I get emails and they say, I hate what I have to read in school, but this book is good. And they ask questions about the time, and I am in very intense discussions when I do readings, and I did a lot of online readings the last couple of months, and they have been very successful as well. So I think it's a book where you can learn a lot about East Germany, and what for me is important is that I really would like to point out that it was a dictatorship, because that kind of discussion is quite weird sometimes in Germany as well, because it's claimed that it still was the better system. It was more human and fairer to children and women, which is that's not true. And I don't want to be, like this, oh, you have to learn. It wasn't like that. I just wanted to write a story which is readable and exciting for young people, and showing, the normal life, but as well all the inhuman sides, and that's, I think, you learn a lot about the life, and you learn how people can behave in a total system, or how are they forced to behave in a total system, and yeah, the life in East Germany wasn't easy, because there was no justice, there was no freedom of press or travel, and no free elections. And this is something we sometimes forget in Germany, because when people say, oh, it wasn't that bad and it was good as well, and so that's some kind of a little mission. I mean, it sounds not so great, but a mission, a book with a little mission.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important to understand. And, I have to say you did a really great job of bringing that very vividly to life. So
thank you. Thank you
thank
very much.
you. Thank you very much. And thank you for being with us. And I hope that our readers do pick up a copy of Beyond the Blue Border and enjoy it.
Yeah.
At least as much as I did.
And if they have any questions, of course, they could contact me via my website.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.